doing that, I'm going to switch over like this, though, so I can just change that up.
Oh, my computer froze.
Hello, welcome to Art Check.
Sorry. My computer froze like right as I hit go live, and it just died.
I know. I was like, I gotta jump in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to 48-hour Art Check round 98.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cory
Round
over there is
98.
half robot and just displaying all these different images.
He's just flickering in and out. It's like, you said half robot, and then I was thinking of EndoXO. I don't know why that reminded me of it, but it did. Anyways.
There are some robots in that one.
Yes. Anyways, welcome to 48-hour Art Check round 98. 2 more till we hit 100 and like 183 more until we surpass Kerr, who is on this show today.
And you have to do at least that. That's the rule.
Yeah, the rule is that Emily and I are not allowed to stop until we surpass Kerr, and he did 280, which means that we have to hit 281. Anyways, that being said, Emily, today is Thursday, so what have you gotten done since Tuesday?
Oh crap, let me make sure. Okay, I have like a ton of stuff all over my laptop, and you make sure that when I swipe over, you actually see something. So I started drawing wolves just from references. This is like really quick and dirty from like a half hour ago. So yeah, that's like the only like drawing I've done. Mm-hmm. I started a mermaid sketch, but it's in the ugly phases. See, this is permanently going to be in the ugly phase, so I'm allowed to show that. But the mermaid is going to leave the ugly phase, and I was just like, she's not ready for the world to see her. So,
I'm about to show a really bad drawing, man. So I would love to see the mermaid.
It's a really bad, like anatomy-wise, like her butt is like coming out of like her hip or something weird. Like it's just not right. And so it's like, I can do better than this. I'm not going to let people see her hips look like that. That's just weird. So yeah, but it's there. I started it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all really.
I mean, it's literally been 48 hours, so you're good.
Yeah. I did like some research related stuff, but that's not drawing. So yeah. Anyways, that's it.
Kerr, just recently, I guess, what have you gotten done? It's been a little while since your last art check, so you don't have to do it all, but.
So I'm working on an animation. So I'm designing some of the characters. This is a client job for a music video. So this is the first sketch that I'm doing. I haven't drawn people in a really long time. So there's that. And then I also am getting ready to do some screen printing. So I just got back from the printer with my transparency for my First Amendment patch.
That's cool.
That's cool.
And then I finished up the final scenes for the Breaking the Chains that I'm doing with Jim Lujan. Let's see, since Tuesday. And I don't have this pulled up, but getting everything set up for the indie review show on Monday.
The IRS. Woo, 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 woo. We have a whole little banner dedicated to that. We've been promoting it at the end of the shows.
Sweet.
We're jazzed about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comics are rad. More people should read them.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. I'm trying.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. So this is for, I guess I'll deal with that in plans, but that's all I've got. Just those 3 or 4 things.
Yeah. For me, let's see. I did this for school, but I actually like went a bit above in like a different way for it. So I wanted to share it because I'm proud of it. So I made a t-shirt mock-up where you can like change the t-shirt color of it. The cool thing that I did though, is that actually whenever you place your design, it masks out your design. So it actually will go under the jacket. and it'll look like it's curving with that. So I was pretty proud of that because that's like the first time I've done a t-shirt mock-up, and I wanted to challenge myself and add the jacket in there. So it was just doing that. And then also I tried to do a style that I've never done before, and I have learned I am not doing that ever again. So I don't know. You guys both have Switches, right?
Yeah. Or
Okay.
do you have one?
I finally got one. Yeah. I haven't purchased
cool.
a new console since like I bought a used Wii like 10 years ago.
Well, the Switch is amazing. So
yeah, I bought the Switch for Jacob, and it's funny because now all he does is play my Spider-Man game on the PlayStation. But so there's this game called Serial Cleaner, and it has this like kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
And so I tried to do that with Jeffrey Dahmer, and I don't like it. And I mean, I know that serial killers are supposed to look creepy, but it's just like
too much for you.
It doesn't look great, but I'm getting somewhere, I think.
I think it looks cool though. I don't think you should hate it.
Okay.
You should like it at least a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's getting somewhere. Like right now I'm trying to choose which facial features I'm pulling out.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, and it's not necessarily going to look exactly like a baseball card, but it's kind of going to be more of like a Polaroid looking thing where like it has like a white border on it, and then it'll say exactly who it is on the front. And then on the back, I might put like facts about the serial killer. I don't know. But I've been reading a lot about Jeffrey Dahmer. And it's very fascinating and more than I ever thought I would know about a cannibal. But I can't show the research that I've been doing, but I've been looking up like baseball cards and what they look like.
Yeah.
And I have like a specific style in my head, and I can't figure out how to type it into Google to make it show me that.
Trading cards.
No, it's not.
Pokemon.
I don't. Yeah, it's not. It's not Pokemon. Pokemon's love Pokemon, but no. No, I've seen it like once before. It had to have been on like TikTok or Pinterest or something. And I've been trying to figure out how to word it to get Google to show me the style, but I don't know. I'm working on that. So challenges, Emily.
I at one point I remembered them, but I forgot. I don't know, just like doing other things. I don't know. It's not like crazy challenges. I don't really have like a thing that like stopped me from doing anything other than like, I don't know, 48 hours is a short amount of time. So yeah, just doing some other stuff, and then I'm like, oh, I guess I should draw for art check. So yeah.
Nothing huge. I've got some stuff I'm trying to get done for a endorsement. So I've got a sponsor, I guess, for one of my YouTube videos. So I'm trying to work on that under kind of a deadline. Yeah, just basic time crunch stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, nothing real big on the challenges.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of chilling. I don't know. Now that I actually got a planner and started to schedule stuff, I'm doing way better. So
awesome.
Yeah, so I actually have time to sit and like I've tried to watch the IRS show more. Like I like watching all of the art shows because then it motivates me to do art while I'm watching them. So I'm trying to basically get back to where I was like a year ago when I was watching all of it and doing all that stuff. But yeah, and the challenge of trying to figure out what the heck the style is in my head, because I'm not at an illustration point where I can take what's in my head and see it. Like my brain just doesn't work like that yet, and like put it down. So it's like a disconnect that I'm trying to make work. But
that's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Takes a long time though.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, like I listened to some people and they're like, okay, this is what I wanted it to look like, and then I drew it, and I'm like, I have to think about what I want it to look like, be able to see physically with my eyes what I want it to look like, and then I can do it. So
Yeah. It takes a long time to get better at that. I don't know if you ever like 100%. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's ever like there's like magical moments where it happens perfectly, but like that's about it.
yeah, the thing is, I was like, oh yeah, it's like Caitlin's, and then I looked at Caitlin's, and I was like, nope, that's not where I got it from. Oh, it's from Cereal Cleaner, and I looked up Cereal Cleaner, and I was like, that's not it either. And so I don't know where I'm drawing this from, but I'll figure it out. Anyways, next art check.
Next art check, I would like to. So the wolf thing, by the way, that's for like the mini comic that I talked about a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
So I would like to do more visual development on what that is going to look like, because I don't really know. And there's going to be a lot of stuff that I've never cared to draw before, because it's like takes place in like the 1800s. So visual development. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kerr, you don't really have next art check, but next few, I don't know, coming up.
Coming up, we've got these guys, which you can't totally see all of them, but
I'm excited for this one.
Is that Lady Killer?
No, this is one that.
This is one that Scott's doing.
Yeah.
3 shadows. Okay.
It looks cool.
So it's 3 Shadows by Cyril Pedrosa. I've never read it before, so that'll be kind of interesting. And then I've got 3 more band members to do. I've got, let's see. Oh, and I will have finished this video of my first experience screen printing. So I'm like filming it along the way, and I'm going to cut it together and do that. And I may cut another video, depending if I've got time, but I probably won't. So, but I got a script on. I'm studying some stuff that I find kind of interesting. So without going into too much detail, because I know that's not what we're talking about today. I'm looking into something called the basic attention token, which is a blockchain similar to cryptocurrency that tracks your time on different sites and with different influencers, and pays people according to the amount of time that you're spending with their content, rather than an ad-driven model. And so, because I actually think within the next 2 or 3 years, our current online advertising ecosystem is going to completely implode and just disintegrate and go away. Because I kind of want to see if I can get ahead of the curve, but I think the writing's on the wall with California and the EU and other things, making it so you can't track stuff. But so there's a new thing I've signed up for called Brave Browser. That's like a web browser that you earn blockchain tokens based on your browsing, and then you can tip creators from what you're earning. And so that seems interesting, and I'm going to kind of tie it into the conundrum of the First Amendment versus private companies controlling public speech.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what this whole screen printing thing is that I'm working on. So hopefully I'll get a script that is persuasive and makes more sense than my random happened. But I'm still kind of exploring those concepts. So, but I do think the current advertising system is unsustainable. So.
I'm at the point now where like I've paid to not have ads on multiple channels. Like I'm on like the YouTube version where I don't get ads.
YouTube Red.
And Spotify, same thing. And yeah, like when I see ad, I'm like, why do I have this?
Yeah. Jacob has like an Android, so he has this like app downloaded where it basically lets him avoid all of the ads, and it drives him nuts because I use the TV, and he's like, I can just pull it up on my thing. I'm like, I don't care about the ads. Like it doesn't. I hit the skip ad in 5-second thing, but
I don't really
it
care
would
about
be
the
nice
ads.
if they went away.
Yeah.
I don't really care about the ads as much as I care about the fact that there are private companies that are mining and selling my data.
Yeah.
Consent and without my knowledge of what it is that they know about me. And so like this is like localized data that it never leaves my device. And so it's still personalized advertising, but it's personalized advertising filtered through information that I control rather than that information being bought and sold in a predictive behavioral market.
What is that website or browser called?
It's called Brave browser. Let me see if I can find the website. Let's see what the website is. I think the website is...
Is it brave.com?
Yeah, it's just brave.com. So, seems interesting. I've been looking into it for a little bit, but it basically is just... It's the founder is the guy who made Firefox and invented JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not like some rando guy. It's like a pretty heavy hitter. But yeah, it's basically just a massive cookie destroyer so that you can't be tracked from site to site. So,
it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm like looking at it right now.
Yeah. So, but I think, Andrew Yang, who was running for president recently.
Yeah.
He kind of ran on a platform that was like, if they're going to mine your data, then you should get compensated for it.
Mm-hmm.
By way of, dissuading them from taking everything. If it costs them money, then they'll take less and they'll be more discerning about it.
Yeah.
And I kind of liked that because it was better than everyone else who just isn't even talking about it and doesn't understand what's even going on.
Yeah.
But I still think, tech companies intentionally manipulating people to change the way that they think and feel and behave is horrifically problematic. So
he's the only guy that talked about that stuff.
Yeah.
I think everybody was like, all the young people were like, yeah, dude. And everybody else was like, what? This isn't politics.
Right.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So. Technology is magic. It's not real.
Yeah. I mean, a huge portion of the voting base for last election, they still write their passwords down on a sticky note that they put on the monitor. They still call the monitor the computer, so there's some lack of understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's my plans for the next 72 to 56 hours. I don't know.
The most politically active I got was because Emily made me, so.
I drove her to the voting places and said, hey, go get a letter.
It wasn't necessarily hey, do you want to drive me? It was, Kayla, you're voting. Let's go.
Hop in my car. You're not doing anything in the next several hours. Hop in my car. I'm taking you to go vote.
I'm going to explain politics to you, but yeah.
It's awesome.
Yes. Anyways, for me, we talked about I talked about it at least on one of the shows, was downloading some of just our weirdest, funniest moments of the show and just kind of clipping them together. Specifically the fears episode, just kind of clipping that apart. And so I kind of want to do that, and then I'm distracted by Kerr's screen.
I'm like, ooh.
This is my voting animation. I was just putting it on if it's distracting.
It's all good. I wanted to watch it.
Have you not seen it?
I think so. Did you post it on Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram, YouTube.
The first part of it looked familiar with the...
Yeah, I 100% recognize the first part. I'm like, I've seen this on Instagram. Yeah.
How do we make
Make it bigger?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
I'm not driving this bus.
I made it bigger. No. Heck.
No. I'm trying.
I got it.
When he goes in the kitchen.
So yeah, there it is. There's actually like narration and stuff, but I can't control anything. I'm not used to being a guest. I'm used to being the host.
I don't know how to make it to where you can share.
Let's see. We don't have to watch this, but I can.
Anyways, I'm gonna keep on probably working down the serial killer path.
I'm excited.
Me too. It's one of those things where I'm not like 100% invested. So if it just keeps on not going the way, it's one of those projects that I can like throw away and be fine. But I'm gonna keep on giving it my best shot for a little bit. But
yeah,
it might be something I have to revisit later when I have more of a skill set for making people.
Yeah.
Because this is my first attempt at, like, besides the Spider-Man and the faceless illustrations, like, this is my first, and even Spider-Man was faceless, so it's my first attempt at faces, so we'll see how it goes.
Faces are so much fun.
I'll get there. I try things out until I force myself to like them. At least I used to. I got out of that habit. I'm trying to get back into it. But I used to like force myself to, that's why I made an animation. I used to try and do things until I found what I liked about it. So that's what I'm going for right now. But
that'd be a good project for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. So
learning how to draw a lot of dudes' faces. I don't see how that could not make you learn that really quickly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it just depends on the style and everything. I don't want it to be super realistic. I don't want to actually draw like a straight up serial killer for people to carry around. But anyways, our topic is comics. Emily, take it away. I don't know much about comics, but I'm here.
Well, first, let's talk about IRS agency. Cory, would you like to tell us all about your cool new show?
Sure.
Okay.
Here, put me full screen again, and I'll.
Okay.
I don't know how to do that. Kayla does.
Okay, so the IRS agency, or the Indie Review Show, since IRSagency.com kind of scares people, I think Frank was trying to convince somebody to click the link, and they were like, "I'm not clicking that." I'm going to start referring to it as the Indie Review Show, but we're going through, and we basically, Josh and I decided that we were going to stop talking about ourselves so much because we're boring, and I got really tired of doing that. And so we decided, well, we never really talk about like our influences. And so what we're doing is most illustrators have read a lot of comics. And so we were the type of illustrators that read a lot of Marvel and DC and stuff, but also a lot of Image and a lot of Dark Horse and Top Shelf and a lot of like indie stuff. And like Josh is into like really obscure kind of indie stuff that I've never even heard of. And I'm into a little bit more, I don't know if you'd call it mainstream indie, but a little bit more popular of indie stuff. And so basically we decided to start a show that would talk to people about our influences. And so there's a couple things about it that we're kind of excited about. One is that if people like the stuff that influenced my work, then they might like my work. And so like, you know, if you like Scotty Young, for example, who's an incredible inker and has a really fluid inking style, which I'll be covering in a couple weeks, then you might like the way that I ink, right? But also, if you're looking for a place to be introduced to stuff that isn't, you know, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and, you know, like the basic capes and tights, we're making a show that will kind of introduce people to new and incredible comics that will actually move the needle for people because, you know, like the people who make these are not like independently wealthy and they're not gigantic companies. I mean, they're like individuals who put themselves out there and kind of took a risk on stuff. Like this one isn't even available on Amazon. He just sells it on his website. And so anyway, so we started with the Limbo comic, which is one that that I really like and is super weird. And it's like this 1980s fever dream that mixes like 80s technology with like different pantheons of gods and, you know, people getting sucked into TVs, and it's very strange and techie and weird. So it's like right up my alley. And so we did that one. And then Josh just did Further Grickle, which is a guy who does these like really simple drawings, but they're just incredibly amazing from a gestural standpoint. And then Scott's doing Mondays, and I don't know anything about that book, so I'm excited to see it. So it's basically just like the stuff that we normally talk about when we're not on the air, but it gives us an opportunity to discuss things that it isn't just like a Cory Kerr commercial, which I felt like that's what the 48-hour Arch Up became, was just like every single episode was like, look at what I'm still making, you know, and I got really sick of that. So yes, that's the Indie Review Show. We think it's got some legs because, you know, we'll tag the creators in it, and then they so far have been retweeting our stuff and been excited about it, and we'll gain, you know, a couple people from their audience each time we do something with them. And so it's kind of fun because, you know, if you like them, you might like us because we're influenced by them. So that's kind of the basic idea.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Pop us back in.
I got it.
What?
Oh, you said pop us back in. I did it. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm really excited because I don't know. I want to read more comics, and I don't know where to start, and I don't really want to read a lot of superhero Marvel type stuff. So, yeah, very excited to find new stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of really decent superhero stuff.
Yeah.
I recognize Little Nemo.
Yeah.
Yeah? I didn't know.
I accidentally did a book that was exceptionally similar to Nemo in Dreamland. And when I pointed out the different things,
The whole group had a little crisis.
she was in a group project that was doing a thing where this kid rides his bed into Dreamland, and then it becomes a train, and then they see this Candyland. And I was like, oh, were you guys inspired by Nemo and Dreamland? Which is like this very popular book, you know, from like the Sunday papers like forever ago. And anyway,
the whole group was like, what? And I was kind of laughing, and everybody was like, you couldn't have told us this earlier.
I thought you guys knew. I thought it was intentional.
It was not. But I recognize that now because that's Josh is doing that one.
Yeah. So,
But
Yeah.
well, Windsor McKay. I mean, he's the one that does the came up with the brush that everybody uses in comics, the Windsor Series 7.
Mhm.
That's what everybody, and that's Windsor McKay. It's based on his artwork and his brushes.
That's
So.
cool.
interesting.
So yeah, so I don't know where you guys want to take this, but I think comics are awesome. I'd love to.
Can you answer a burning question for me?
Absolutely.
What is with the comic font?
Which one? Comic Sans?
Like that. Like why is all of the dialogue in the same font across every comic ever?
Oh, it's not.
I'm learning that, and I'm always grateful for when it's not. But when I see it, I'm like, why?
So Comic Sans is a horrible font that was very loosely and not very well based on the actual hand lettering of the comic book illustrators in the 30s and 40s. And so they would go in and they would rule it out with like a micron or like a drafting pen or something, and they would just draw it, and it became because of the tools that they were using and because of the sizes that they were doing things at, it became a style in and of itself. And then Comic Sans came around and sort of kind of like picked up the general idea of it. But in actuality, there are fonts that are much more closely based on that type of thing. But I mean, the human hand does small things in a very similar way, and so it tends to be that. Plus, there's also
yeah, Frank has been in the chat, and I've been laughing.
He's going nuts over there. It's great.
I've been laughing the whole time because he's been going off the whole time.
Yeah, he says embrace the self promo, and I feel like I did for like 600 hours of self promo, and I feel like I've earned the right to de-embrace, to debrace, to disengage.
That was a really long hug. Time to let go.
Move away now. It's like one of those hugs that lasts too long, and I don't want to do it anymore. We're still plugging our stuff, but we're just not doing it for an hour 3 times a week. We're doing it for a couple minutes in the middle of a much more interesting topic. But yeah, so anyway, so hand lettering is common until about the 90s, early 2000s, when computers started to come around, and then people began, like Blambot is a foundry that is really awesome. And they do, I'll pull up their stuff. Blambot. They have some free fonts and some paid fonts, but I'll go.
I have looked at the Comic Maker Toolkit.
Comic Maker Toolkit is pretty cool, and that's Scott Circlin's thing.
Yeah.
But like Blambot, they have all of this stuff, and you can tell that there is a very similar feel to it, like Anime Ace 3. I've used Anime Ace 2 before in comics, but there's still some variation. And so like Tight Spot and Anime Ace, they look similar until you start looking closer and you start to see that there is some nuance in that. But it's basically just, it's based on hand lettering. And so there's kind of some, just like everything else, there's some codification that happened where there's some expectations of what you come to expect in certain formats. And so like there was a study done on movie posters. Have you guys heard about the movie poster font theory?
It's always that one font that's got the serifs.
So there's a different font or a different typeface per genre.
Oh, okay.
And so if it's almost everything. If you use this one, it's going to be a rom-com. If you use this one, it's going to be horror. If you use this one, it's going to be drama. If you use this one, it's going to be action. And it became codified so that the audiences have come to expect something specific for specific typography. And it's a very similar thing in comics where you've come to expect dialogue to be a specific way. And there are certain conventions with that dialogue, like when you make a word bold, for example. So Frank is using Anime Ace. That's one of my favorite fonts. But when you make a word bold, then you're telling the reader to emphasize that word as they're reading the dialogue in their mind, right? When you put it in angled brackets or the greater than and less than signs, then you're telling them that this is translated from another language. So there's different things that have been codified in the typography that happens in the lettering. That communicates to comic readers what's happening. If the dialogue box is black instead of white, or the bubble is black instead of white, then you kind of are assuming that that's a much more gravelly, deep, almost creepy voice. The edges of the balloons will change the way that you read it. And so if you have some jagged edges, then you'll read it in a more electronic voice. If you've got, so there's that type of thing. And I think the typefaces kind of fall into that as well. Also, I think Comic Sans is horrible typeface. It's also free on most computers, and so people who don't think it through. They're like, oh, that looks like comic books. And so then they stick it in everything. And so there's a lot of web comics and a lot of like super indie comics that use Comic Sans instead.
See, like I just see comic book fonts and I think Comic Sans now. So it's kind of like ruined to me.
Well, there are books out there like Mouse Guard. Have you read Mouse Guard?
Mm-mm. I've read like 4 things so far.
What 4 things have you read?
I'm obsessed with Lore Olympus, which is like on Webtoons.
Okay.
And then I'm reading East of West.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not done with that one yet, but there's a lot to read. And then and then a couple indie ones. So one is Unearth, and then another one was Don't Go Without Me or Don't Leave Without Me. They're both indie. Don't Leave Without Me especially. It was like, I'm pretty sure it was written by the artist and it's definitely self-published.
Mm.
That's like the only ones I've read so far. Trying to get into more because there's a lot more to do. But yeah, I feel like East of West is the most like standard thing that I've read so far. Like, I mean, it's not Marvel, but it's the most like normal expectations for it type thing.
Right.
So yeah,
so
the rest are all like just kind of out there. So
yeah, Russ Wooten is the guy who does the lettering in East of West, and he does the lettering in a ton of my favorite comics. He's an incredible letterer, and so when you look at the way that he does the speech bubbles and the typography that he uses, it's very nuanced and it's very different based on each character. It's also very different from book to book. So he does another book that you might enjoy because you're a little bit more into horror. So this is a little bit more sci-fi, but it's called the Manhattan Projects. Instead of the Manhattan Project, it's the Manhattan Projects plural. Gotcha. And it'll be one of the ones I'm talking about on the Indie Review Show. But the idea is that it is all of the scientists that came up with the atomic bomb. That was the Manhattan Project, right? Mm-hmm. But the comic book is like they get all those scientists together and they actually invent the atomic bomb in like a weekend, but then they don't tell anybody that they did. And so they keep taking government money to create all kinds of weird scientific things. And they like open a rift into alternate dimensions and they go like visit alien planets and they go like destroy things and do all this stuff. And you have like Albert Einstein walking around in like a wife beater tank top with like a sawed-off shotgun, just like
what?
It's incredibly weird. But he does the lettering in that one too, and it's so good. But he does the lettering in a ton of the stuff that I really like. Russ Wooten is like the go-to indie comic letterer guy. Anyway, so he's a good example of varying the lettering quite a bit.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like so far in that is like some of the panels will be a word. It'll be like a block letter, like blam, and it's a gun being fired or something. Right. That's like some of the coolest thing that like that's something that's like, oh, could I steal this? Like,
oh yeah,
yeah.
And sound effect lettering is so cool to try to come up with. That's some of my favorite stuff on Twitter is when people are like writing or drawing a comic and they're like, hey, how would you spell the sound of like a smashed banana hitting a wall? And then a bunch of people get on there and they're like trying to spell it.
Oh my God.
It's the best just to watch creators try to like figure out what the sound of things should be spelled out as.
That's so good. There's like this level for me where it kind of pulls me out of it and I'm like, what is that word? And then but yeah, there's other ones where it's like where it's immediately readable and it's like, oh cool. Yeah.
I have an original page right here actually. Sean Crystal did this. See, can I find it? There we go. And so you see like the boom. It's hard to see. You see the boom in there. And then he does the what. Anyway, it's just some great like sound effects lettering. So, and you can see like the actual like ink splatter and dry brush that he did, and then the thumb on the toothbrush trick to get the white ink to break that up.
It was pretty cool. It was pretty awesome. I also found so I'm sorry. Oh yeah. My hat. So one thing that I just found today was it's called Strip Panel Naked.
It's such a good show.
I just found this, and it's funny because there's so much where I'm like, I don't know what this comic is. I don't know what you're talking about, but I can see that this is gold. But
that dude loves Moon Knight.
Yeah, so that's the one that it was like the best action scene I've ever seen in my entire life was on this. I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty awesome.
Where he's dragging the bat along the brick
wall. Yeah, that one. and like I'm not crazy about superheroes, but I feel like I'd be really into Hellboy. And
Hellboy's not a superhero comic.
I feel like it falls into, it's like classic, and then it's just like just off, like you just barely venture out of there, and then Hellboy's there. That's how I perceive it as, if like, because like that's been like Hellboy is a comic thing for a really long time for me. Like I've just it's been like in the brain of like Hellboy is like a really popular comic. There's a lot of action in it. It's a board comic. Like there's things that like categorize it into like, oh, this is normal comics.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, it's very popular for an indie comic, but it is.
Yeah.
I mean, Nola. I mean, I've got BPRD right here.
Yeah.
And then I've got a couple other Hellboy comics, but he does a lot of really interesting short stories. But I wouldn't classify it as superhero per se. I mean, he's kind of like a
off superhero, but it's like very close.
I'd call it like lighthearted, quirky horror. There's a little bit of superhero in there
that Emily would like.
Yeah, and well, I feel like the more and more that like I come in contact with Hellboy content, I'm like, that looks that good. That seems like something I would like. Like I remember before I knew that it was a comic, I thought that movies were interesting. I'm sure that that's offensive to, I feel like everybody feels like, oh, you liked the movie of this book that I love? Oh, how dare you? But
if people get offended at that, they're lame.
But like there's been these touch points in my life where I've gotten slightly more interest in it every time. Where I'm like, oh, that could be cool. That could be a cool read. So, but Strip Panel Naked, like I watched like 2 things that were like Hellboy, and it broke it down, and I was like, see, I need to read this. This looks good.
I'm trying to find my volume 1 of the short stories. Just to kind of show you, but like, you know, this is Hellboy, and that's very much not a superhero style.
Yeah, not superhero.
Yeah, no, that's not what I mean by like. I feel like it's like it's.
I think
not a superhero. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe the term you're looking for is mainstream.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it still feels like it. I mean, it still feels like a superhero thing where it's like, oh, this character that looks very strange and like it is very fantastical or whatever. Like I feel like it falls into those kinds of like it's like Tiger Man, but it's obviously not a tiger. He's like a demon type thing. But
sure. I'll give you. You could loosely classify Hellboy as a superhero.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't think that like he acts like one, or you know what I mean. But like I think that like in terms of like this main character that looks very strange compared to everybody else, I feel like superheroes do that very often.
But I mean, in that definition, is like Frankenstein's monster a superhero?
No, because it's
Wolfman a superhero.
because it's spooky.
You have like a
if it's
main character that looks
spooky,
very
then I
different
feel
than
like
everybody else.
I feel like Hellboy is also spooky, to put it in your words. So
But
I-
these are some of the
anti-hero.
fun conversations that you can have about comics that I love, because who cares? But it's so fun to talk about. I don't know why, but it's like there's no consequences to this situation as far as like who's right and who's wrong. But it is a really interesting thing. Frank says that by the definition of somebody who looks weird and different than everybody else, that he is a superhero. So I think that works pretty well.
Because then you also get into vigilantes, which they're not superheroes, they're vigilantes.
Yeah, but
Well, there are quite a few superheroes that are vigilantes.
I think
That's fair, but there are.
superhero is a vigilante.
What'd you say?
I mean, vigilante is just somebody who operates outside of the official law.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there could be crossover there.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Sean Gordon Murphy's Batman White Knight addresses the superhero vigilante issue, and several of the Bat family, I guess you'd call them, join up with the Gotham PD and become like GCPD. And you've got like Nightwing and Batgirl wearing like GCPD baseball caps with their masks, and they're driving around. They've like repainted like various versions of the Batmobiles with like GCPD logos. So they're no longer vigilantes because they're now operating under the purview of the police.
They tried to do that on the CW Green Arrow show. They tried to get something like that going.
Are you an Arrowverse fan? What Owlicity? Is that the Owlicity? Is that how you say that? Where you ship Felicity Smoke and that a-hole?
I used to jeez. I used to be way more into it than I am now. Here, wait. I have like a sign.
Okay.
It's like signed. I have a
By the
flash.
actors?
Yeah, I have that one's signed by Stephen Amell and Grant Gustin, and then I have a different one behind it because the office was going to be Marvel, and so I moved my DC stuff.
Oh my gosh.
I have this one.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I am a fan of it. I haven't watched it recently because it like went downhill real fast, and then Batwoman quit, and so it's just a whole thing, or she got fired or something. I don't know. Anyways,
Wait, which show was she in?
they made Batwoman. They made it a show.
Oh, the Birds of Prey show?
No, Birds of Prey is a movie. That was a DC movie.
Was originally a Gail Simone comic book.
Let's see. Here.
Gail Simone is awesome, by the way. If you don't follow her on Twitter, you need to do that right away because she is hilarious.
How do you spell Gail? Normal, like G-A?
Yeah, normal Gail and then Simone. She is like, she's just this kind of like middle-aged woman who just trolls everybody all the time. And you're either in on it or you get trolled super hard. And I don't know how people still fall for it. She like consistently goes out and just trolls. Like she'll say, I think it's really weird. Yeah, so I've seen this.
Yeah, so this is the TV show, and then it was Ruby Rose. She either quit or got fired or something. I don't know. So then they made it this chick. I don't know. It got way out there, and the Flash got annoying. I mean, some things are better left as comics.
Also, I don't know at this point in time how anyone is surprised when the CW touches anything.
I was just about to say
it's like
different words.
Why do people still give the CW the rights to these characters?
Yeah, I was gonna say also just the CW. Like, if you watch something from the CW, you should never expect to be 100% pleased.
That's fair.
Yeah, I kind of expect it to be kind of shoddy. Like the CGI is always kind of bad. The writing is going to be fairly cheesy. You're going to,
I like
It's gonna like the will they won't they drama doesn't do like a Ross and Rachel thing where you care about it. It just pisses you off the whole time. It's not written well enough to make you invested in the relationship. You're just like, just kiss or don't. I don't care, but like shut up about it. Like, that's every CW show I've ever seen.
Also, just like the CW to me is like the epitome of like network television.
Right.
Like, oh, I don't need this, dude.
Like when you're watching it on streaming and there's no commercials, there's obvious spaces where there's a commercial that's supposed to be there.
I got super into it when I was like, I couldn't sleep at night and I was like up until like 5 a.m. And the Green Arrow was on Netflix and I got really into the Green Arrow. And then that went downhill a few years in. And then the Flash just got annoying at like season 2. And then they added Legends of Tomorrow. And there was an episode with murderous unicorns and I stopped. So that's when I left the CW.
I knew that I didn't need to watch Legends of Tomorrow as soon as they took the worst character from the Arrowverse and like they're like, it's that robot chick who can't act, and like everybody's supposed to fall in love with her and think that she's amazing, but she deadpans every line and doesn't have any facial expressions. We're going to make her the main character in this other show. And I'm like, well, I don't care about her or any of those weird B-list characters either. So that's all I need to know about that show.
Yeah, I watched them because of the crossovers that were happening. And then I think Black Lightning supposedly is, I don't know. I gave up. I went hardcore Marvel after I realized that the CW was making it bad. I just gave up.
We should see if we can make you go hardcore Image and Dark Horse and Top Shelf.
I would be very interested in it. Well, you sent me all the comics and I'm like trying to be like, okay, if I DoorDash this much, how many comics can I buy?
When I was a kid, my cousin and I, we used to, because money doesn't make any sense as a kid, so we used to equate everything to like Nintendo. And so like it would be like, oh man, that's like 1.5 games worth of money, you know, or that's like a controller worth of money. Like that was our unit of measurement. And so it makes sense to me that you'd be like, how many DoorDash trips do I need to make to pay for this comic? Because that's like an equivalent currency. How many is it, by the way? Do you have to do like 4?
So if I go to Idaho Falls and I DoorDash for about 3 hours and I don't go at night, because by the way, at night you get into some really scary neighborhoods when you're 21 and a woman and cannot defend yourself. It was a very interesting time.
There's some in the numbered streets. Was it in the numbered streets?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's some weird stuff in the numbered streets.
I pulled up next to like an abandoned church building with like paint on the walls and like a red sign. I was like, I'm done.
It still blows me away that like in 2021, there's still an area of a city that's a fairly well-developed city where there's not enough room to drive 2 cars in either direction in the streets.
Yeah.
Like you have to drive on the sidewalk. I mean, like, what is this, like 1807? Like what is going on right now?
Well, because
it was a scary time.
Then like the building I work in is 100 years old and the houses behind it. I have friends who live 2 streets away from that. They're like, yeah, our house is 100 years old. The stairs, I guess people had different sized feet 100 years ago, because what is the size of these stairs? And
also no building codes.
Yes.
And my favorite thing about that building is that I was there when the state government forced them to replace the elevator because it was the oldest functioning elevator in the state of Idaho. And it would I would always take the stairs because
that's motivation.
5% of the time it would just stop working and you'd be trapped there for a couple hours while people would and it's not a big elevator. It's like a very small room.
It's a cart-sized elevator.
It is the size of a small sheet music cart. And it fits about 4 people max. It's not 4 people is an uncomfortable amount of people. It's like a it's like a small closet on a
It
giant
is closet size. Yeah. Like you get in there and you're like, what is this? I've never been in an elevator this size before.
Does it still make terrifying noises every time it moves?
No, I mean, I don't know. I never use it because it's like darkly lit, and if you get into the elevator with somebody, you have no other option but to stand shoulder to shoulder with them or just stare them in the face because it's really narrow. I don't want to be in that elevator. Also, I sit at a desk all day. I'm going to take the stairs.
Yeah. The only
so
reason I would ever take
motivated.
the elevator is when I had to move product into the basement because
Yeah.
they were like, the only place you can set up a studio for photography is in the basement. I was like,
Yeah, it's still there, by the way. Yeah.
Is my rope rigging still there? Like,
I think he changed it a little bit because he was like, "Oh yeah, that was cool. I changed it." But like, there's stuff there. There's definitely stuff. Like I find stuff every now and then.
Are there still the scenes? I built like 6 different like living room scenes.
They're like the orange one. The orange one. That one's
Well,
there.
it had like wainscoting and a brick wall, and then you could like flip it around and have like a fireplace and like wallpaper. And
I think we might have like newer ones then because we have like sets that are like, oh, somebody's gonna come to the studio and play guitar. Let's put the orange wall there. But
But it's like two 2x4s with casters on them, and then a big wall that sticks up from it.
I don't know. Probably not. I've been in there like twice. I'm not usually the one who takes product photos, but yeah, it's an interesting place though. Also, it's about 2 elevator sizes, maybe 4 now.
Yeah, it's not huge. Anyway, back to comics.
Oh yeah, it takes like 3 hours of door dashing for me to be able to get like a comic.
Dang.
Like a $20 comic?
Yeah, like a $20 comic. Because it depends, because then I have to pay for the gas too. I don't know. This is the first time I've been like unemployed in my school career. So I'm like just wanting to DoorDash so I can buy the things that I used to be able to buy.
Just read 1 million first editions online.
That's fair. I could.
Yeah, Comicsology has a ton of free stuff.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between all the different, like, I feel like a lot of stuff that I've looked at has been through Image or it's been self-published. I don't know the other stuff, and I don't know what like they do most frequently or like what they're associated with.
Like what Image does or what?
Yeah, like you were mentioning, Image, Dark Horse, blah blah blah. Oh, like what do they do? What I'm like, what are they like, Image does a lot of this stuff, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so
my comic book buying is being sponsored in the chat.
Is he going to tell you what comic you have to buy? Yeah, so they're publishers, right? And so like Marvel, they do, kind of the MCU type of stuff or whatever.
Right.
People get mad at me for saying the MCU because that's the movies or whatever, but that's basically what they're doing now.
Yeah.
They've even like changed characters so that they look more like the actors in the movies. And so, and then, DC does, so DC's Marvel is more like social justice. So Marvel is kind of like representing like the underrepresented classes of society. And so there was a lot of back when people were super racist and really anti-Semitic, the only jobs in illustration that Jews could get was comics because nobody cared about comics and everybody thought they were dumb. And so like all the cool kids, wouldn't let any of the Jewish artists do any of that stuff. And so you had like, Kirby and I forget his name, but all those guys, they got into comics because that's the only thing that they could really do.
Yeah. And I feel like I see that in Marvel on Twitter a lot, like with specifically the people that I follow on Twitter, they're doing comics. They're like always diverse people or just making diverse stuff. Anyways.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. And there's so like the X-Men, for example, the X-Men are like mutants. they're scary to people that don't understand them, but they're just like everybody else. But are they dangerous? Are they not dangerous? And it's kind of this like soap opera of super powered people. That's kind of like the X-Men is like, you've got like the love triangle thing with Wolverine and Jean Grey and Cyclops. And, you've got like Beast, he looks, beastly, but he's actually like hyper intelligent professor guy and all that stuff. But they represented at the time, they represented the Jews, and then they came to kind of represent the blacks, and they came to represent much more recently kind of like homosexuals. And so there's always this kind of idea of this is the class of people that is underrepresented and is being discriminated against, and that's typically the X-Men. That's the representation of the X-Men. So that's kind of Marvel Comics, is you get the kind of representation kind of issues. So it's a lot of kind of like soap opera stuff. DC is more of the same types of powers, but it's really based on like the Greek and Roman pantheon of gods. And so you have, you've got your Perseus, you've got all of those types of characters. And I mean, the Flash is basically Hermes. He's got wings on his feet and on his helmet, and he's fast, and he delivers messages, and he can travel through time, and like Kayla's mind's just
yeah. Literally an Amazon. Yeah.
You literally have actual characters from Olympus in the Wonder Woman mythos. And Wonder Woman is fascinating because the guy who invented Wonder Woman was a really progressive psychologist who was in an open relationship with his wife and his mistress. And he based Wonder Woman on the budding at the time feminist movement. And so she is constantly in bondage, breaking out of bondage to show, like at the time you would have, women were fighting for the right to contraceptive, which was like a thing where people were like, you shouldn't be able to have birth control or whatever. And they're like, why? And so there was this big movement, and a lot of the symbolism of the propaganda for feminists at the time, where they were trying to get the vote, where they were trying to get to be able to work in the workforce, where they were trying to be able to have contraceptives, where they're trying to be able to, control more of their lives and be more equal, is you would see women breaking chains. That was a very, very common thing. And so in most Wonder Woman comics early on, there was kind of this kind of BDSM, breaking out of bondage, breaking out of chains, breaking out of ropes situation. And then you also have like the Amazons were literally in Greek lore, like this superhuman race of female warriors that, almost no men can equal, and, whatever. And, I mean, you have like Hercules that beat I can't remember her name, but like the Amazon queen or whatever. But like for the most part, Amazon women were akin to like the actual like Spartan hoplites. Like they were like the most elite soldiers. But Wonder Woman initially, until they rewrote her, initially had no father. Her mother made her out of clay, and so there was no man in her origin story, which was a big part of this kind of feminism movement that was going on. But other than that, a lot of what was going on in DC is based around, Greek, Roman, Norse gods, and they would just take them and they'd repurpose them. Like the reason that Superman looks the way that he does is because that's how the strong men would dress in the circus.
Mm-hmm.
Wear their underwear on the outside, and they would go and they'd wear a cape and they'd lift up big heavy things. And so they were trying to say like he's a strong man, and everybody at the time recognized it and everybody forgot that. They was like, why does he dress like that? Why is he looking like that? Or whatever.
Why is he a man in tights?
Right. But I mean, literally that was how strong men used to dress, those that would show feats of strength for entertainment. And he is an alien out of place. He's the golden representation of humanity because he has zero reason to care about humanity and is good anyway. I think he's a kind of a weak character because after a while, initially it was like able to leap buildings in a single bound. Like he couldn't fly. He didn't have like laser vision. He was just a strong guy that could jump high and run slightly faster than most people. Like he wasn't what he became later, where he was like, and his breath can freeze things and his eyes can burn things. And if he flies really fast, he can reverse time because he turns the world back. And like he became so powerful that they're like, oh, no one's going to care about this guy because literally nothing can threaten him. So like green rocks, you know, or whatever. And like most DC characters are kind of like that. Like this kind of cracks me up, but like the Green Lantern, do you know what the Green Lantern's main weakness is?
I don't.
The color yellow.
Are you for real?
The color yellow is the Green Lantern's main weakness. It's not anything else. It is yellow colored things.
So like you could throw a banana at him.
And it would cause some serious problems because it's yellow. Because DC, I'm not a DC guy. DC, in my opinion, they overpowered their characters to the point where they had to come up with just ludicrous things. Right? I mean, Wolverine is like a really interesting character because he's a guy that is constantly trying not to become a feral animal. Like he's constantly trying not to give in to his natural animal nature and just become Sabretooth running around naked in the woods killing things. And they have good storytelling in that they actually show you like Sabretooth is basically Wolverine, but he took a different path. And so you can always see that Wolverine is on the edge. He's an interesting character. Scott Summers, not an interesting character. Super boring.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really have any weaknesses. He doesn't really have any problems. He became kind of interesting a little bit more recently, but you know. So anyway, so that's DC and Marvel, right? You've got kind of like the Pantheon, you've got kind of like the soap opera. They're both just kind of super powered versions of each other. And when like one of them comes up with something, somebody else comes up with something else. Oh, he also had a weakness for wood.
No.
Sorry, that's why I started laughing while you were talking.
A yellow number 2, man. That would be.
Oh my gosh, like a Ticonderoga, just chuck it at him, dead.
Yep. So, you know, and since the Green Lantern has become more interesting, right? Mm-hmm. They tried to limit him by saying it's like a willpower thing. Like you have to have a certain amount of willpower or whatever. And then they do all the colors in the rainbow. So there's will, which is green apparently, but then there's hate, which is red, and there's
so it's like infinity
Starfire
stones.
is like love and lust, which is kind of purple.
It's like the Infinity Stones, but not.
It's sort of the Infinity Stones, except for like the CIA for space is kind of what they are, like all the hyper-powered CIA agents. They did do an interesting run a few years back where the color black became a powered ring, and there was kind of this breakout that caused all of the super-powered beings in the universe to kind of turn into zombies and start killing everyone. So you had like zombie Batman and zombie Superman, and all of the Lantern Corps was like trying to fight can you imagine trying to fight like a hyper intelligent, like greatest detective in the world zombie who's teaming up with like God zombie Superman?
But if I threw a banana at him,
I'd read that.
But if I threw a banana at him, I would win because it's yellow.
Right. So anyway, so that's DC. Now, Image is interesting because what was happening was in the 90s, comic books became super popular. So when I was in high school, they were like incredibly popular, junior high and high school. And there were these kids basically, like who was it? Not McFarlane, but the guy who Rob Liefeld. I think he was like 19, and he's like drawing like one of the best-selling books of that time. So anyway, he's making like huge money. I don't know how much, but like huge money, like bank, right? Like dentists and doctors would be jealous. of the amount of money these artists were making at the time. But they weren't getting like the rights to things, and there was kind of like some weird stuff. Like at the time, people didn't own the rights to their original pages. They would like mail them in and then not get them back and stuff like that. And so there's all kinds of weirdness going on with that. And so after a while, they kind of teamed up, and they're like, hey, you know, so Todd McFarlane, who was drawing Spider-Man at the time, he's the one who invented Venom. He came up with Spider-Man's black suit, the symbiote or whatever. And he just got a bunch of other, I think 5 other guys, and they're like, let's start Image. And so they started a new comic book company, and it was the first kind of new main contender. There's always been kind of an underground series of comics or whatever, but they were very subversive, like Crumb and stuff like that, where it was more like satire. It was more like Cracked and Mad Magazine and that type of like subversive zine type thing. This was the first group of like mainstream people to break off and make another competitor for mainstream stuff. So you had the big 2, right, which have literally been around since the 30s. And I mean, they started like Superman became really popular, and then so Batman is the answer to Superman. So everything that Superman, and they weren't in the same company at the time. So Superman, you know, he doesn't wear a mask. He fights during the day. He wears very bright colors. You can see his face. He's a nice guy. His villains are just very strong. Batman fights at night, wears a mask, is psychologically completely messed up and totally damaged. He's not like a Boy Scout. He's basically on the edge of being a villain at any point in time. And the only rule that's keeping him from being a villain is that he doesn't kill people or whatever. And he is tripping balls like all the time. Like his villains like Scarecrow and the Joker and whatever are constantly fighting him with like mind altering chemicals or whatever. Whereas Superman's punching each other, right? So you've got all that going on. And these guys leave and they say, let's start this new thing. And they start Image Comics. And the 2 rules with Image Comics is the only thing that the company owns is the Image logo. And everything that everybody creates is owned by them. And so it was a collective that gathered resources to be able to publish things. But I mean, inside of Image Comics, each of the founders started their own comics company. So it was really like a conglomerate of small comic book companies. So you had like Todd McFarlane's company inside of Image, and you had like Mark Sylvester's company inside of Image, and you had all of these guys that kind of had their thing, and each one of them had kind of their own universe. Yeah. And so it became a platform that was known for like indie. And then, you know, 10, 15, 20 years later, what happens is somebody like me, I could pitch Image, and they would say yes or no. And if they said yes, then I would pay for my own print run and I would retain the rights, but they would put the Image logo on it and I could use their distribution to get to the comic book stores.
Yeah, it seems like really close to a self-published thing.
Image is technically self-published with the exception of you're doing it's kind of a combination of self-publishing. Like self-publishing is really like
you're doing everything
or whatever. You're doing it all. But like with Image, they have editors, you know, they have publishers, they have connections with whatever. Yeah. And so you would write and draw the book and letter it and color it and get it all done, or you and your partner, your team or whatever would do that. And then you would send it to them and they would print it and tell you how much it costs.
Yeah.
And so they take some of the work away from the creators, whereas self-publishing, you're literally doing
printing it yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm on Image right now, and it looks like you can just like click it, read the first edition. Oh, yes, I'm not going to click on that then. It asks if I'm over 18, which just means I don't want to show it right now because people can go back and watch these. Anyways, it looks like basically you can read the first edition on here and then buy it later.
And it looks like there's all sorts of stuff. Like I found a lot of stuff on Image. It's like, oh, it's everything.
Yeah, so Image has superhero stuff, but they've got everything from superhero stuff to, I mean, The Walking Dead is Image.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and the guy who does The Walking Dead, he actually became a partner in Image, which is kind of unheard of. But he did a ton of stuff, and one of the ones that he did I really like. It's called Invincible, and that was his take on the superhero universe. But he also did horror when he did The Walking Dead. He's done sci-fi. He's done all kinds. He's just an incredible writer that can like write in any genre, and he has launched a ton of careers. So he's a really interesting one to look at. Is and I'm blanking on his name right now. I'm terrible at names.
Better than I am. So.
Yeah. Anyway, so
sorry. I'm also scrolling. My friend texted me at one point while you guys were talking and was like, "You look really bored." And I was like, "No, I'm just drawing Jeffrey Dahmer." I was like, "I'm listening. I'm just also drawing."
It's okay.
So I'm listening and I'm scrolling, I swear. But I'm scrolling. I'm fully paying attention. I want to make that clear for everybody.
Oh, there's his face. What is his name? Come on, give me his name. Robert Kirkman. Yeah. So Robert Kirkman has done a ton of comics, and he's a really good one to do. So if you do like Robert Kirkman comics, let me just get a list of Robert Kirkman. So let's do not filmography. Give me. I love how Wikipedia has a filmography, but he's actually a comic book writer. So he does Battle Pope, Invincible, The Walking Dead, Marvel Zombies, Irredeemable, Outcast. So he's got some stuff that's really good. He's also written for like Robot Chicken and stuff like that. So,
have you read The Umbrella Academy? Random question.
I haven't read The Umbrella Academy. I feel like The Umbrella Academy is a little bit of a knockoff of Deadly Class, which is a much more adult version of Umbrella Academy.
Okay.
I've watched Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, I just keep on like every time I watch it, everybody's like, "Oh, it's based off of this comic."
Yeah, they made it pretty apparent in the first like couple episodes when they just kept dropping comic books into the scene. Like, okay,
Oh, really?
Gotcha. Okay, this is a comic.
It's a good show.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know much about Umbrella Academy. I remember seeing it come out. I think like the initial issue had like a woman that looks like a violin or something on the cover.
Yeah, that's what just pulled up on my screen.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't remember much about it. So what anyway, I've just been talking comic book history, which probably isn't super interesting.
I think it's interesting.
There is a book called what is it? I'll find it, but it gives a really interesting history from Grant Morrison. Morrison biography. What's that called? He's a Scottish comic book illustrator and writer. Mostly a writer. Something gods. I can't remember. Super gods. So yeah, it's super gods. What masked vigilantes, miraculous mutants, and sun gods from Smallville can teach us about being human. It's a very long title, but it's literally just him talking about growing up with comics in the UK, and like it's fascinating take on different things. It gets very weird when he starts talking about his own personal philosophy of like life, which he has developed through the occult and through mind-altering drugs and experimentation with some weird stuff like that. And so that part of the book is strange and odd. The rest of the book that talks about comics is really fascinating, and I really like it. The last part where he starts describing the universe as a single organism that's eating itself becomes quite disturbing. But anyway, so if you're into the history, there's also Will Eisner's biography is fascinating on the rise of comics as a medium. So he started a company. So initially, comics were the funny pages. There were syndicated comic strips in newspapers, and what was happening at the time is that you didn't have the internet or anything, and so you would have Will Eisner came up with this concept of like, I'm going to draw a bunch of comics, I'm going to put them in a book, and I'm going to hire a salesman to go to all of the different newspapers around the country and sell them this book so that they can syndicate it in their newspaper, and they can sign up for like the whole thing, right? Anyway, he chose a horrible business partner and got taken advantage of, but that is the origin of graphic novels. Is collecting these comic book stories into a book to sell them to newspapers. And then consumers started finding out about the book, and they're like, the reason we're reading the newspaper is because we want the book. And so they just started buying the book, and then they started being sold. And back then it was like boys, girls, everybody was reading comics, and there was all types of different genres. There wasn't just superheroes. There was romance and Westerns and sci-fi. And I mean, every type of genre out there was available in comics until the 10-cent plague, which is this psychiatrist convinced Congress that comic books were ruining America's youth. And so then Congress started going after comic books because they had a horror genre. And so there was like comic book creators that were like pulled up in front of Congress to explain why there was like a decapitated zombie head on the cover of their horror comic. And then that destroyed everything except superheroes, because they were the only ones that were like good and right and just and American. And so there used to be a big variety, and then it got narrowed down into superheroes. And then kind of the late 90s, early 2000s, it started to kind of branch out a little bit again with Image and Boom and other Omni and other things, where you got like slice of life stuff. And as the internet came around, you started to get like web comics kind of coming back, and there was kind of a resurgence of like self-publishing. And now we've got a lot of different genres again, but most people still associate comics with like capes and tights superheroes, but comics is not a genre, it is a media. It's a medium, so it's a way to deliver genre. So anyway,
cool.
So yeah, I feel like I've not recommended any comics to you, and I just lectured.
No, I'm good with it. Yeah. I learned about DC and the Greek mythology, so you blew my mind on that one.
You would go rewind the video and watch your face. Flash is just Hermes, and you're like.
If you want to see, oh my gosh, did you watch our Fears episode?
I watched part of it. I didn't watch the whole thing.
Okay, if you want to see the funniest facial reactions, you know how you talk about how AI is going to take over the world?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've given me a fear of this, okay. And I talk about it, and there's a point where Emily makes a comment, and I just am not even thinking. I say something back.
You say the weirdest thing.
I'm like, what is it? Emily's like, oh yeah, AIs are just going to keep us like we're zoos. And I was like, we don't need dogs, but we keep them. And Emily's face just freaked.
There's this point where I go, and there's this point where I'm freaking out, and then she goes, like, realizes what she said after I realized. It's like,
there's some good facial reactions on this show.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it. I don't know why, but I
didn't realize
it.
There, to be fair. So
no, the Hermes thing I did. The Wonder Woman thing I wasn't as like.
Yeah, that one's really blatant.
Yeah, but the Flash one I did not realize that whatsoever. So anyways.
Yeah,
with that being
the same symbolism. that happens. I mean, you've got Shazam with the lightning and all of that type of stuff.
Oh yeah,
That movie is good.
It's a good movie. Oh, Shazam! It's great. That's a
You haven't seen Shazam?
I promise I'm not a person who dislikes action movies, but when like a superhero movie comes out, like I have to really be pushed into wanting to watch it. Like to be wanting to watch it.
But you watch the Hellboy movies.
Yeah.
Because they're not superhero movies.
Well,
right?
and it was a really long time ago too. Like this is like I'm getting Marvel exhaustion. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like over the years, I'm just like, how much of this stuff am I gonna be watching? Am I gonna be like how
You don't watch the good Marvel movies though.
There's a ton of movies that you've probably seen and enjoyed that you might not know that are actually comic book movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's a really good media to get out ideas on a low budget. Like if you think about it, like you can make anything happen in a comic, and it's not like you have to pay, hundreds of CGI artists to like make it happen or like blow up a truck. You just draw the truck blowing up,
Yeah.
You have an
I'm at this point with comics where I'm like, I don't know who you are, but I think I love you. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I don't know anything about you, but I want you, So like there's this like I'm dipping the toes in of like I don't exactly know what's gonna happen next, but I'm excited.
How far into East of West are you?
I'm like so I've got like the volumes. I'm like I would say I'm like at least 60% into the first volume.
Oh, so you're not very far at all.
I'm not very far because I
have like the trade paperback volumes or like the collected edition volumes.
The really expensive ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You're a little bit farther then.
Yeah. So like I've read several like issues within that.
So you know at this point in time that they're the four horsemen of the apocalypse and that Death has a son.
Yeah.
And you know who his ex-wife is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Bruno, not now. I'm like I'm past like his wife is like the new government of like she killed her dad and it's great.
She's the new not czar, empress.
Yeah. So like my dad bought that for Christmas for me because I was like, I need comics, but I don't know what. This is a good thing to ask for because like I'm not paying for it. They're gifts, so I won't regret anything. Yeah. And he's like, oh, how do you like it? I'm like, it's really good. It's crazy violent. And I was like, oh, let me show you this panel. And he's like, oh, like he didn't know that he got that for me. And I'm like, it's cool. I just wanted to tell you, like, this is wild.
Yeah, Nick Dragonetta, like, he's an incredible artist, and the character designs are phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, having like, Death and Pestilence and all those guys as children, and then as adults, and then having them represented by specific colors.
Yeah,
and the fact that he rides a mechanical horse that has a giant laser cannon for a head.
Yeah.
That
thing's awesome. Also, like, I totally see it as a dog, not a horse, even though I know it's a horse.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of ex-dog-like.
It's got like a greyhound vibe to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. The hindquarters are a little bit like thinner.
But yeah, there's just like sometimes I turn the page and I'm like, oh, dang. Like, that was nuts what happened in that panel. That's a lot of blood.
Have you met Balloon yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay. It gets really weird once you meet this character called Balloon.
Cool.
But that's I mean, yeah, you're well into really good stuff. If you like that one, different vibe, a little bit more playful. Black Science is kind of interesting.
Black Science?
It is a team of scientists that are a little bit punk rock. They're kind of like rebellious scientists. And they develop a way to shift into alternate dimensions, but something goes wrong and they get lost. And it's just them running for their lives from the craziest worlds that you can imagine.
That's
like
cool.
Frog people, Amazon warriors that are like chasing them and like use their tongues as weapons and have spears. And then they shift, and then they're in like a bug dimension, and then they're in like you know, it's nuts.
That's
It's
cool.
like-
It looks cool and the art looks cool. See, I'm also very much of like, I might just not care what I'm reading at all if I think the art is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, Manhattan Projects I mentioned. Black Science is good. Yeah. And I think you've already expressed an interest in Lady Killer, which I think is like right up your alley.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that one, that one on the indie review show.
Did you follow Joelle Jones?
No, I followed maybe I followed her and she hasn't posted anything.
Okay, so Joelle Jones is the one that does Lady Killer. She also has recently done like Batman and Catwoman and stuff like that, but she's incredible. I own 2 of her pages. She also did a comic that I think you would really like, called Alheim, which is
That witch one, right?
yeah, it's where 2 witches start creating Viking zombies to fight each other, and so they start like raising like the best Viking warriors from the dead and Frankensteining them together into like a Frankenstein Viking zombie called a Droger is what they're called, and then they fight each other with the undead and weird creatures that they raise, and so it's like this witch war fought with the undead.
That's cool.
Very interesting, and the art is phenomenal.
The art that has blown me away the most is I mean, and I haven't watched or read a lot of stuff yet, but Lore Olympus.
I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to look that one up.
Here, I'll pull it up. It's so beautiful, and it's like it's my cup of tea in terms of like just art that I would like to consume.
Oh, okay.
Like the reason why I was like, sure, I'll check it out, was like because of the artwork. So it's so cool. It's about it's the kidnapping of Persephone, but like Hades is a gentleman, not like a jerk who kidnaps her.
Okay.
And like the art style about all of this is like so perfect. So they're all different colors, and it lets you I don't know, it has like these great cues of like sometimes if somebody's talking, like it's just a pink bubble instead, and you know that it's Persephone talking instead. Like everything is super smart. I love like the texture of everything.
This to me, I don't know what people actually call this, but this to me just looks like Procreate art. There's like a specific style of illustration where there's like 2 brushes in Procreate that everybody loves, and they look like this.
Yeah, it's and like I don't know. There's just the cool thing is like I don't really care about webtoon. Like I haven't.
The blue one Hades?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was about to say that gives me serious like Disney Hades vibes.
He's a really cool, just like he's like this boss man of like he rules the underworld and he's the boss there. Like, yeah, he's the king, but he's got all his paperwork and, you know, has to worry about people's wanting a raise and blah, blah, blah. But they've got this wonderful, this is meant for your phone. So these like beautiful long panels. I just love like the flow of it. Yeah, and it's all Greek mythology, and it's like really delved into it of like where I don't know some of the stuff and I have to go look up, well, who is this character in Greek mythology? So yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. But yeah, it's been going for a couple of years, and it puts out an episode weekly, and in the span of like 2 or 3 days, I read all of it. Like I binged. So yeah.
That's like one of my least favorite things when you get to the end of it and you're like, now I have to wait.
Yeah, so it's free. They've gotten me through the sales point. I give them my money now, because you can read ahead, and you do that for like coins, which you have to buy coins in the app and blah blah blah. But yeah, it's pretty beautiful. Yeah, I'm just scrolling through all this gorgeous artwork here. But
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah,
I accidentally moved it.
What?
I'm trying to find it. Oh, here we go.
Okay, I have to go because me doing this takes away the Wi-Fi from everybody else in the apartment.
Time to clock
And
out.
so if you guys want to keep going, I will watch. I can't be on the stream anymore though. It
Okay.
literally like just it's already starting to flicker. What is that? Oh.
So this is New 52 Wonder Woman when they reset everything, and just the titles of these books are just awesome. But you've got Blood, Guts, Iron War, Flesh and Bones.
That's fantastic.
And what they did is Cliff Chang is the artist in this, and they kind of reinvented the Greek gods who are all of her siblings.
Mm-hmm.
So they reinvented her as not Hephaestus, that's her uncle. Anyway, she's a daughter of Zeus. She's like Hercules, where she's like demigod. But anyway, the character designs for the now I'm not finding any. Oh, here we go. So this is so there's a couple of them. Nope, which way am I going? So this is Apollo, who is like the sun, right? Because he's Apollo. So he's like a black hole until he gets really pissed, and then he bursts into flames and turns into like the sun. And then you've got like here's Hera. But then you also have, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, but you also have like Hades. And Hades is a child with the top of his head is a constantly melting candle. And so he just has like melting wax dripping down his face all the time. And like Hephaestus is like this weird like creature looking thing. And like Hermes is like part bird, like he's got like chicken legs. And then, like Cupid has like 2 golden desert eagles instead of like a bow and arrow. And so he's like blowing people away with like 50 caliber pistols.
What?
It is a crazy comic. Oh yeah. And like, I just saw, so that creature is the god of the sea.
Oh.
So he's like and that's Hermes. So let's see, so like this is Orion over here with the helmet on. So he's like a space kind of deity because he's from like a different generation. Anyway.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So if you're into and then there's, let's see, where is that guy? There's this guy that is like just kind of this overweight homeless person. Is this guy. And he when he takes his blindfold off, like a cloud of flies just flies out of his empty eye sockets and attacks people.
Oh my gosh.
It's some like super crazy stuff. Anyway, this is like the most entertaining that I think Wonder Woman has gotten for me. So yeah, you've got like Hephaestus, who is like part molten rock, and he looks like this. So like that's Hephaestus, the weapon forger.
Yeah.
And this book is where you find out that most people say that Wonder Woman and Superman are like equally matched. in like strength and abilities and stuff.
Mhm.
In this book, you find out that the bracelets that she wears are not to increase her strength. The bracelets that she wears are to contain her strength, because if she takes them off, she becomes so overpowered that she just like kills everyone within
my
like a
gosh.
5-mile vicinity of her. So she's like way more, she's like hundreds of times more powerful than Superman is, because she's got restraints on all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, but if you're into like, if you want to do the Greek pantheon thing with the superheroes, like
Yeah.
Wonder Woman, Blood and Guts is a good way to start.
That's cool. And it's funny. That would be a very funny side by side.
Right. Yeah.
Because
The
it's
one
like,
that's like kind of like the
it's like,
happy-go-lucky kind of romance.
yeah. Well, and it's like, yeah, it's like yeah, it's a romance, and it's like a modern take, even though like I think it technically happens during ancient Greece. It's just that like in Olympus, like it's modern.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's basically a drama, you know. So it'd be funny to see that compared.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I just love that they didn't make all these people humanoid. They just made them like they probably were perceived.
Mm-hmm.
Weird, scary creatures and stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I gotta reread these. It's been a while.
I need to read everything.
So. Yeah. Well, you're reading some good stuff now.
Yeah.
That East of West is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's good. I need to pick it up more often, because I'm still like, I'm not a person who's like, I'm gonna sit down and open a book. I'm like, I'm gonna sit down and draw. I need to like actually take time out to like
read it in the bathroom. Just leave it on the toilet.
That's a great idea. I don't trust that fancy book being in the bathroom though.
Yeah, I'm the type of person that doesn't like to keep comics nice, because they're meant to be read.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the book is so nice. Like, it's hardback. It's all fancy. It's like, it's real fancy. And so I'm like, oh, I need to take care of this. Yeah. I'm also a take care of my books person.
Right.
To be honest. But yeah. Well, it's 8, so I'm going to do the wrap thing.
Sorry, now you're breaking up really bad. I have no idea what you just said.
Oh no. I was saying that we're gonna because it's late, we're gonna wrap it up. So I'm just gonna go through all the follow stuff. So if you want to follow Kayla, the comeback downward thingy, KLD, looks like kid, the comeback kid on Instagram and Twitter. Gumminelli, that's me. Gumminelli.com, Gumminelli on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Kiley Creative, she wasn't here today, but she's part of the fam, on Instagram. And then go check out Crimson Owl Comics, 12 Months of Horror Holidays. And then go check out irsagency.com and go look at some comic books, dang it. It'll be great. So yeah, that's our art check for you. And we're sticking to it. Thanks for joining with us today. Yeah. And have a good one.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.